Um, so this video is a bit different to what you may have seen from me if you subscribed recently, but it might actually be a bit of a return to form because I have been umming and ahhing about what kind of content I want to create for my YouTube channel, and I think this is indicative of a larger kind of like soul searching thing of being in my early 30s and trying to work out like what interests me at the moment and like what I care about, what am I passionate about, what are things that I have an interest in versus what are things I actually want to allocate time and energy and resources to. And so I know that for me, ASMR has been a big thing for forever. Well, as long as it's been around. Like I've watched it and I've enjoyed it, and I have a few friends from the community. And so I know that for me, it's something that I care about pretty deeply in that sense. But I also know that I'm not sure about how I'm supposed to contribute to it, or even if I am supposed to be contributing to it. And so that is the nature of this video, is me just kind of articulating. And I think there's a weird kind of subtle irony in there, in that I'm like a very authentic person, and what I mean by that is that I struggle to act. Like I'm not good at pretending to be something that I'm not. I'm not good at pretending to have an interest that I don't. I'm not good at pretending that I can talk about things or emulate things that I'm not knowledgeable about, which is good and bad. It's good in that people generally know who I am and what I'm about, but it is bad that in situations like this I struggle to do the whole faking it before you make it kind of thing. And I think that the nature of YouTube now is that it's so algorithmic that if you kind of read around or if you take any advice, a lot of it is very like, you need to pander to what the algorithm wants. You need to be performing and operating in a way that really kind of captures a certain audience. And I find that a lot of modern, or let's call it neo-contemporary ASMR, isn't the ASMR that I grew up with. And by that I mean that it's very hyper, it's very intense. A lot of the content is very overstimulating for me anyway. I think what I used to enjoy about ASMR, and what I still do from a lot of the creators that I follow, is the relaxation aspect. And I think the hyper-aggression of some of the kind of modern ASMR, where there's lots of like, tapping and like franticness, it's not that I don't get it, because I do. I understand why that appeals, but I think that it's a lie to tell myself that I could try and emulate that, because I don't believe in it, really, is what it comes down to. I support all those people creating that content because they have a skill and they have a knowledge and an awareness that I don't have. But I would be lying to myself if I were to try and kind of emulate that. And so I think really what I'm getting at is that the nature of my channel, I think up until now, has been experimenting with things like, reading game guides and talking about hobbies and that kind of thing. And I think that's probably where I'm gonna dive a bit deeper. But I think where I'm gonna particularly dive deeper is that I am a conversationalist. and a communicator. And I think that where I can really kind of like find my place and find my niche is through those vocalizations. Like, I think my ASMR really needs to kind of drill down into talking. And I say that because I think orating is a skill, and I think that it is something I'm reasonably good at. We're approaching 6 minutes, and I've been speaking without kind of stopping. Like, it is something that I'm trained in as part of my job and part of my work, and it is something that I actually quite enjoy doing. Like, I find it quite therapeutic and quite cathartic to express my opinions about things and to just kind of like articulate them into nothing, really. Obviously conversations are wonderful, but sometimes there's a catharsis that comes from really just kind of saying it to no one in particular. And I think that that's where some of my frustration with keeping a content calendar has come from, is that I enjoy making things, I enjoy being creative, and I need a creative outlet. And this kind of suits that pretty well. But it can be frustrating. It can be a pretty, not damaging, that's too extreme, but it can be a dissatisfying experience to try and create something and you know that it's not what's necessarily popular at the moment, or you know that it doesn't have the kind of flashiness of some of the modern kind of videos that you see. But like I said, I think trying to emulate that and trying to create that is foolhardy for me, because I'm not that. I can't create that, and I don't think I want to create that. And so this is me kind of just saying really that I think that going forwards I'm gonna really try and lean further into that more kind of classic ASMR, I think, where a lot of it was very monologue-y, where people would just kind of like chat about certain things like interests and their hobbies and their lives, and I kind of miss that. I really appreciate the content that some of my friends make, where they review things and they talk about things that they care about in particular, and they kind of share things that are meaningful for them. And I think that I can likely do a similar kind of thing. But I would be interested to know from other people, what you're interested in. What do you care about? What do you want to know about? Particularly because the nature, I think, of, like I said, the nature of kind of contemporary YouTube and ASMR is that it isn't easy to work out what people actually like. And I say that because, some of the more kind of classic channels still enjoy hundreds of thousands of subscribers. But so do the channels that offer that more kind of frantic, intense kind of style ASMR as well. So who knows? I imagine that in time, as I kind of keep at this, that whatever audience I kind of build will make itself kind of known, and the nature of that as well means that the content that I create will become, tailored to what they kind of indicate a preference for. Like I said, I think the thing for me at the moment is that in my life in general, I'm trying to determine what I'm interested in and what I want to kind of focus my energy into. Like if you have seen my previous videos, I've been talking about trying to write a story, and that's going okay, I guess. But it's also like it's a very emotionally intensive experience, because my profession is that I'm a writer. That's my kind of like key skill. And I think that when you are in a situation where you're having to really kind of like navigate, can I do my skill to another level and do it in a different way than what I'm used to definitely kind of makes you query certain things about yourself. And those things range, like I said, I think they can range from an emotional kind of standpoint, where it's like, do I have the actual drive and charisma and determination to do this? All the way through to like, am I intellectually able to do this? Like, am I smart enough to map out a narrative, to construct something effectively, to be able to actually put words on paper and have them make sense? And the answer at the moment is I don't know. But that is part of the learning experience, right? Is that if I don't know how to do something, even if it is adjacent to my key kind of skills, then it's there to be learned. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that. And I expect that as time goes on, I really start to map out a better idea of how that is and how it's supposed to progress. I'll likely share more. And yeah, I think that, I have lots of interests, and music is a big thing for me, and I'm very interested in history and politics and current affairs. And I think that, rather than trying to be flashy and using props, and even, the reality is that using like an album or a book is a form of a prop, right? And I just don't think I have that in me. Like, I don't think I have that presenting kind of skill. And I appreciate that I just said that, skills are there to be learned. But I also think that certain things are kind of intrinsic to our character. I don't like presenting. I like talking. I don't love presenting. I thrive in an ad-lib, spontaneous environment. I'm not good at, like I said, at kind of like following a scripted kind of thing. It's just not how my brain works. I'm not able really to kind of look at something and like follow it perfectly. I just don't have that discipline, I guess, is what it comes down to. And I think it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that I'm pretty imaginative and creative, and pretty willing to kind of like try new things and new ideas. But it also is a curse in that I struggle really to be formulaic when I need to be, because there are times when we need to be, right? And I think that's become obvious the last kind of few months as I've tried to make these videos, because the reality is that you only see the end publication, you only see the end result, really. You don't see the starting and the stopping and the failed videos that never went anywhere. There's a Kiwi ASM artist who I forget the name of, but she's very fascinating. I'll put her in the comments once I remember who it is. But she had a bloopers reel, and it was very not satisfying, because I don't mean to imply that I find solace in her having bloopers, but it was just, comforting to know that my frustrations are not a isolated experience, and that she has many experiences, frustrations, and false starts and interruptions in videos and things not going as expected. And I think that's the thing that I'm struggling with at the moment, is that production doesn't come naturally to me. And I think that is where those two worlds clash, really, is that being formulaic as is required for these kind of things, versus me requiring a more kind of holistic, organic experience. And the middle ground there, I think, is actually learning how to edit better. That's the compromise, is that if you can't find it in yourself to do it in one take, as very few people can, and then you really need to kind of like dig deep into editing. But I don't have that kind of skill. I'm good at writing, I'm good at graphic design, terrible at video. And there's a different logical challenge I find to video than there is to any other creative medium. And I think it's the nature of it kind of is like a puzzle. It's kind of like having different pieces and you shuffle them all around and it produces an outcome. And I find that I am not good at that type of puzzle. So being who I am, I tend to be somebody that relies a bit on instant gratification. And if I don't tend to get that, I tend to be a bit kind of, what's the point? I feel disenchanted and disheartened. But that's life, right? Kind of circling back to what I said at the start, I feel like I've kind of hit that age where I'm more content to fail than I used to be. But also, as much as I'm content to fail, I'm still allergic to it. I don't like the idea of failing. I'm definitely somebody that procrastinates because they have a fear of failing. And oftentimes the fear of failing represents a more negative sensation than the idea of actually succeeding. So I avoid it. But that is just a human flaw, right? That is the nature of the human condition. We're all flawed and difficult individuals, and it is what it is. But anyway, this is just a brief kind of update video, and I wanted just to kind of like articulate that I would appreciate input on the kind of content that you would like to see, because I think that will help me kind of work out like what am I creating and what is it that people actually want. Because if you want that more kind of classic style ASMR like this, where it's really just a bit of a one man and a microphone talking at you for 20 minutes, I can absolutely do that. That's my bread and butter. If it's more intensive and you want to hear mouth sounds and eating and you want to see like multicolored goo, it's probably not me. So yeah, let me know. I think though that in the coming days my next objective will be to start to map out what does that content look like. What am I going to talk about? Is it just going to be life updates? Is it going to be things that matter to me? Is it going to be things that are in the news? Is it going to be me talking about music? And really I think it's probably all of the above. But like I said, I think a sense of direction on what appeals to you as the people who listen to this is much welcome.